Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. What is the role of the Kingdom of Thailand at the United Nations? What issues are of interest to Thailand, such as climate change, education, and poverty? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. Today we're taking a look at the role of Thailand at the United Nations. And of course, there are 193 member states of the United Nations General Assembly, and Thailand is a major player. My guest today is an expert on Thailand. My guest today is His Excellency Virachai Plaisi. His Excellency Virachai Plaisi, since February 2015, has served as ambassador and permanent representative of the Kingdom of Thailand to the United Nations in New York. Ambassador Plaisi has served in an extensive number of diplomatic posts ranging from the Netherlands to the United Kingdom and many more. Your Excellency, Ambassador Plaisi, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
I appreciate you being with me today. I'm sure many of our viewers who are watching this program have been to Thailand, they've heard of Thailand, but it is a beautiful country. It has a rich culture, a rich history, wonderful people. But tell us a little bit about Thailand as far as the population, the size, that type of thing.
Oh, we are about 67 million people, 500,000 square kilometers. That's about 1/20 of the US, same size roughly of France. We are known for being a tourist destination, but I think we are much more than that. I would say that we are one of the few places on earth that you can really combine business with pleasure. You can invest, you can trade with us. Many things of Thailand are not really known at all. That is, we are number 12 for many years now, car producers in the world. Chances are the car you're driving here are made in Thailand. But we don't have a national brand. We produce cars under brands of other countries.
Exactly.
Yes.
And as I recall, it's about twice the size of the state of Wyoming. It's like 577,000
Yes.
square kilometers roughly.
Yes.
And it's on the Southeast Asian, it's in the Southeast Asian area in the peninsula.
Yes.
Yes, well, it's a beautiful country, and I'm sure, as I said, many of our viewers have been there. Let's talk a little bit about your role at the United Nations. You play a very active role. You're involved in a wide range of committees. What are two or three of the main issues that are of interest to you right now as the country of Thailand?
Yes. Well, first of all, this year is very important for us. 2016 is the 70th anniversary since we have become member of the United Nations. We are number 55, members number 55, and so quite early on. We've been working a lot on many issues with the UN, especially peace and security. We've had about, up to this point, more than nearly 30,000 troops working as peacekeepers for the United Nations, or over 20 missions over the years. So that's one of the topics that we still focus on, peacekeeping, but we also lately focus on many social issues, in particular women, children, but also health, and most importantly, question on criminal justice, rule of law, and drugs. One of the achievements in the last decade we are very proud of is what we call the Bangkok Rules, it's how you treat women under custody. We initiated that, and it was adopted a few years back at the General Assembly.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, very good. And of course, if our viewers would like more information, they can go to your website's Twitter at Thailand UN, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
So they can go and
Yes.
so they can go to that and tap into it. So that's
Yes.
very good. The you mentioned several important items, especially peacekeeping. That's true. Thailand has been very involved in
Yes.
previous missions. I think you said 20 missions, and currently there are 16 peacekeeping missions in some very dangerous areas of the world. How do you view it as? Why is it important to participate in UN peacekeeping missions?
Yes, because peace and security is a global issue. You can have no peace at home if you have troubles elsewhere, whether it's your neighborhood or further away. So that's why we have been trying to play our role both within the region, the Asian region, places like East Timor, Cambodia, but we also go farther afield to places like Sudan. And we also participated in the Combined Maritime Task Force that patrolled the Gulf of Aden, for example, because we think that peace and security is a global issue. It's all interlinked.
Exactly, that's very true. Now, I mentioned you were an active player at the United Nations. You're also a very active player in the group of 77,
Yes.
and that was a group that was formed several years ago. Today, there are about 134 member states involved, and their website is www.g77.org. And congratulations, Your Excellency, you are now the chair of the group of 77. So, tell us a little bit about what is the group of 77?
Yes, a very important group. Is the largest intergovernmental organization of developing countries. It was founded in 1964, and we are proud to be one of the founding members. They were 77. That's why the group is called G77. But over the years, we are now 134. The group's mission mandate is to promote interests of developing countries collectively, in particular economic interests. But as you know, nowadays, when you talk economics, you also have to talk social. So some of the issues, social issues, are also dealt with by the group. The group also has for its mission South-South cooperation. It means cooperation among developing countries, which over the years have been expanded to include what we call trilateral cooperation, involving countries from the north, that is developed countries, and a number of developing countries.
Very good. That's excellent. And now, do you have? I'm sure you have many ideas, and your group, obviously, the group of 77, will be putting forth issues such as climate change that we're all dealing with. Obviously, education, empowering women, that type of thing. Do you have a few that you would like to put on the table to make sure that they focus on and to begin with on the agenda?
Yes, of course. We are very honored to be able to chair the group this year after 52 years of being members, active members. We have never shared it, so it's a really big year for us. And our vision for this year is from vision to action, inclusive partnership for development. So the most important item on our agenda is the implementation of the 2030 development agenda that our leaders just adopted in September last year, just a couple of months back. This year, 2016, will be the first step towards the implementation of those goals, but also the review and the follow-up. And as you know, in all undertakings, the first step is very important. So we are very proud to be able to work on this first step together with the G77 membership and the whole membership of the UN.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up the Sustainable Development Goals, and they were adopted in December this past year at the United Nations by the member states of the General Assembly. And of course, they are 17 goals, verifiable, logical, quantifiable goals that are going to be in play for the next 15 years until 2030. In Thailand, are you already factoring these into your governmental policies, into policies as you work with the private sector? Of course, the private sector plays a major role in helping to achieve these goals, educational facilities. Are you already factoring those in?
Yes. Yes, in terms of mechanism, the government has already set up a national committee to implement the SDGs nationally. And at the same time, studies have been undertaken because the text of the agenda was agreed upon sometime during the summer, and so we could already work on the substance of that. Many of the elements in the text are elements from earlier meetings. Take, for example, disaster risk reduction. There was a meeting in Sendai, Japan, which we were very much very active in that meeting. So we have all those elements. those elements have already been incorporated in our national plan for disaster, for example.
That's wonderful. That's very good. And these are, as I understand it, achievable goals. They are doable. We can eliminate poverty in 15 years. We can eliminate hunger. We can do a lot of these. We can empower women, promote gender equality, and they're achievable. Yeah. We can actually do it.
Yes, absolutely. We can actually do it, but we have to work together. Developing countries, developed countries, we have to look at how to finance these undertakings. And everybody has to work together. Funding can come from developed countries, but also within national resources.
Exactly. And as you said, it's a partnership. It is a partnership that we have to work together or we will not achieve, but we're going to work together.
Yes.
Let's move to another area, an issue that is, a lot of people say is a lot of specialists, scientists, and foreign policy analysts say that's the number one problem affecting the world, and that is climate change. We see that the glaciers are melting, the seas are rising, desertification is taking place. Have you noticed climate change in your area of the world, in Thailand, or even throughout Southeast Asia? Have you seen ill effects from it?
Absolutely. Thailand is a country that is between two oceans, the Pacific to the east and the Indian Ocean to the west. So we are particularly affected on our coast. We have problem of management of coastal environment that our scientists believe is a result from climate change. We also have been experiencing drought last decade, which again scientifically is linked to climate change. So it is a very important topic for us.
Exactly, it certainly is. And now the United Nations, one of the main advantages of the United Nations is it can bring the players of the world together, bring all the countries of the world together, bring in the private sector, the non-governmental organizations, everybody who has a role to play. And there was a conference held at the end of 2015 with the climate change conference in Paris, France. How important was that conference, bringing the players together and making a commitment to move forward on to combat climate change?
It was a very important meeting, and we saw that importance. That's why our delegation was led by our Prime Minister himself. We reached a very good agreement in Paris, but the most important thing is to implement that, to make it really binding. Because as for now, as we speak, it is just meant to be binding, but there are steps to be taken nationally so that this is really binding. And the most important thing is that we could agree on to the extent that we will do together to hold the increase in the global average temperature to below, and we agreed on the figure 2, below 2 degree above the pre-industrial level, and that is very important. And if we can do that, I think the world will be a better place.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We would encourage our viewers to go to the website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to take a look at previous programs. Also, if you have any type of media outlet you're involved with, such as a website or perhaps PBS, Community Access Television, whatever it might be, please take a look at our shows. And if you'd like to share them with the public in your area, please go to the Broadcasters page and download the programs. This is a public service that is provided free of charge to help people better understand international issues and how they impact our lives at the local level. Today we're taking a look at the Kingdom of Thailand and the role that it plays at the United Nations and in Southeast Asia, and the really vital role that it plays in dealing with so many of these problems such as climate change. My guest today is bringing us up to date on what Thailand is doing. My guest today is Mr. Virachai Plaisi, who is the permanent representative of Thailand at the United Nations. Your Excellency, we're talking about climate change, and this is one of the most important issues that probably we're going to deal with, at least for the immediate future. Are there other ways that we can get more people involved, that you think that we can get them more involved and to raise the consciousness level? It seems that if you look at polls around the world, many people realize that climate change is taking place, but some are still very skeptical. Are there things we can do to help them better understand it, maybe with better media coverage of the problem, focusing on the Arctic right now that is losing a foot of ice every day? How can we do that? Do you have ideas on what we can do to better inform the public?
Oh, well, there are various ways, and I think first of all, you need to have political commitment to do that from the national level, and I think now we're starting to see that more and more. And here, the UN can do a lot, and of course, program like yours will be very, very useful for disseminating information of this kind.
Right. There's a term, and I'm going to ask you to explain it to me, a term, biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. I've been reading a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I've seen
Yes.
a little bit here and a little bit there, but what exactly do we mean when we're talking about that? And does it tie into climate change?
Yes, of course. Climate change and water are two sides of the same coin. You cannot talk about one without looking at the other. And when you talk about water, you have inland waters, rivers, lakes, and all those, and then you have the oceans and the seas. You cannot disregard the oceans and the sea when you talk about climate change. And biodiversity is a term I think that is people are quite familiar with. It's organisms, microorganisms or organisms, life in the nature. And this has been regulated, so to speak, quite some time ago by what we call CBD, the Convention on Biodiversity. But the CBD only concerns the territories of states and the seas that are under that jurisdiction. That is exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, which roughly is about 200 nautical miles from the coast or less. It means that there are areas that are beyond these national jurisdiction areas, and we call those areas the high seas. And the principle is freedom, and it goes back a long, long way, 17th, 18th century. But what is interesting is that the seabed under the waters of the high seas are regulated. The seabed and the subsoil thereof. And they are regulated by the UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, 1982. This area, the soil, subsoil thereof, are common heritage of mankind, meaning that any resources will have to be equitably shared by mankind, by all the states. But the waters above those seabed are not regulated. And you have biodiversity in those waters. Some are straddling, meaning they change places from the high seas into places under national jurisdictions. Some don't. According to Thailand's Fisheries Department, based on the FAO data, about 80% do not move. They stay in the high seas, and we need to regulate that because there are adverse effects from climate change, from mining, from activities, from fisheries, overfishing, and all that. Day by day, every day, they are adversely affected. We need to do something very urgently. And luckily, the United Nations last year decided to adopt, after many, many years of negotiation, adopt a resolution to develop a legally binding instrument to regulate those biodiversity in the high seas.
Exactly. And those waters are so important.
Yes.
They are so critical.
Yes.
And you mentioned the Law of the Sea Treaty. That is it was really a landmark decision. I believe 82, is that correct?
1982.
1982.
Yes.
It came online. And of course, that was to set up the International Seabed Authority and to bring some order to actually mining manganese nodules or whatever. I remember hearing the people say, we'll mine manganese nodules or whatever on the bottom of the sea. But it is very important to have international rules and regulations so that we don't have the destruction or just the wanton disregard for those areas that are so important. And you've hit on a very important point.
And as of now, those resources, manganese and in the subsoil, are being exploited, and the regime of the International Seabed Authority works. It works. And so there are states who are advocating the same type of arrangement for the biodiversity, the resources in the waters. There are those who say, you know, these are living resources. It should be different from non-living resources. There are all sorts of problems to discuss. How to access all this, how to share the benefits, how to transfer technology. All this we will be discussing. So the good news is that we have a forum, dedicated forum now. It's called the PrepCom. It will start work soon in the spring this year. And in 5-10 years from now, we will have things in place. I am very optimistic.
So this is a PrepCom preparatory committee that's coming together to look at this and make suggestions.
Yeah. But we started like this for the seabed.
Exactly.
A long time ago.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yes, that debate did go on for quite a while.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yes. Well, we were talking. You mentioned earlier in the program about Thailand participating in peacekeeping missions.
Yeah.
Peacekeeping is a very highly visible part of the United Nations. It was never included in the charter in 1945, but it is a major component today of the UN being involved in helping to bring peace and stability to some very troubled areas of the world. There are 6 organs of the UN, as you're very well aware. The General Assembly, which has 193 countries, but the second, the Security Council, which is probably the most powerful of the 6 organs within the United Nations. What role has Thailand played in the Security Council, or would like to play in the future in the Security Council? There are only 15 positions, 15 posts, and 5 of them are permanent posts that are occupied by the United States, Russia, China, France, and the UK. So there are 10 rotating seats every 2 years, but every year, no, I should say 5 every year. I'm sorry, 10 for 2 years. But anyway, what role has Thailand played in the past and would like to play?
Yes, in our 70 years of membership, we only had the opportunity to be a member of the United Nations Security Council only once during 85 and 86. And so we think that maybe it's about time that we try to assume our responsibility and go back there. That's why we are running for this seat, one of these rotating seats for the period 2017-2018. And our vision of being member of the UNSC is that we see security and peace as a global and comprehensive issue, meaning you have to deal with this from every angle, every dimension, including development. And so when you look at it this way, I think Thailand has something to contribute. We are a moderate country. We are from a culture of tolerance. We think we can play a role of bridge builder. And when you look at the root causes of the security problem, the conflicts of the world, you will see that cultural dimensions are very important. And many of the conflicts are born out of these differences in views, differences in faith, differences in beliefs, in values. If you address those, you can prevent or you can solve many of the conflicts. And as I say, we're a culture of flexibility, of tolerance, of the middle path. I think we can try to play some role in there.
This is something that is very interesting. I know there are many states that want to be a part of the United Nations Security Council. Is the process, do the regions nominate a candidate for a particular seat, or does a candidate just declare, for example, Thailand would like to be a member, or if Ecuador wants to be a member, would they reach around to the Latin American delegation, or how does that work?
Well, of course, all member states have the right to declare that they are candidate for such and such post. For Thailand, we are part of ASEAN, so we have to start with ASEAN. Then, and we've done that. So now we are ASEAN candidate for that period of time. Then it has to go through the regional groups, and for Thailand, it's the Asia Pacific group, and we will have to find consensus within the group for the number of candidates to fill the vacant seats. This time around for Asia, only 1 seat, so we'll have to find only 1 candidate. We are working on that, the Asia Pacific group, but if we cannot do that, then we can go to the General Assembly and then go for a vote. It's democracy.
Exactly. That's right. 1 state, 1 vote. 1 country, 1 vote.
Yes,
that's the way it works in the General Assembly. That's very, very true. Yes. Well, as you look, you're an expert in this area. You have a very extensive background in international diplomacy. You've held some very prominent positions over the past several years. As you look over the horizon, what do you see? We know climate change is a major problem,
Yes.
obviously. You mentioned biodiversity, but do you see one or two other major issues that we're going to be dealing with and we need to focus upon in the future that really need immediate attention that maybe we're not giving it attention right now?
Well, I think number one is still security and peace, because we have to talk about peace and security together. And there are spots in the world that you still have problems to solve. And I think we need everybody together, especially the permanent members of the Security Council, to address the root causes, the real causes, at the same time manage the consequences. And I think on many of the issues we are doing fine. We're doing that. In the recent weeks, the Security Council have adopted significant resolutions for that. And in the meantime, we have to work a lot on development. So we comes back to the SDG. We have to work seriously on that. And we have to work seriously on how to finance development. We have 15 years to do that. And I am confident we can do that if we do it together.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, you're playing an active role here. I mentioned too that you're playing an active role at the United Nations and within the ASEAN group and in the Southeast Asian area.
Yes.
And now you're the chair of the group of 77. And of course, our viewers can go to www.g77.org to learn more about that group. But also, we've talked about several other things that perhaps people could Google, such as sustainable development goals, those types of things, to focus on other issues, climate change, to focus on the climate conference in Paris. But Your Excellency, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.